Praise the Lord. Today, Pastor Joshua will lead us to study the book of 1 Kings chapter 4. Yesterday, we said the imperfect people is also chosen by God. Today, we look at chapter 4. The title is So, we have a God-given king in the throne. This world has joy and peace. That there is joy, with joy and peace in the world, and wisdom. In this world, if there is such a God-given king reigning, just like Solomon, no matter it's Israel or all nations all over the earth, there will be joy and peace and wisdom. This is what this chapter is telling us today. There are 3 paragraphs here. The first paragraph, with joy. Or I put it this way, in Israel, there is a God-given king. Then there is joy. Then we have joy and prosperity. Verse 20. The people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. They ate, they drank, and they were happy. Verse 1 to 20 is the first paragraph. Verse 20 is the conclusion of verse 19. The first 19 verses brought about the outcome of verse 20. Everyone was happy. The first verse, so King Solomon ruled over all Israel. The whole nation of Israel, they have this God-given King Solomon reigning. So the previous chapter we said that Solomon is chosen by God. So he is given to the Israelites, to the whole nation of Israel. From chapter 1 to 3, chapter 1 to 2, who should sit on the throne? David was aged and he's dying. He's king. But he didn't say who is his successor. Then at the end, King David said, it is Solomon who will succeed him as king. Chapter 3, we see that Solomon has his own problems. We talked a lot yesterday. He's imperfect. He has weaknesses. He's just like normal people. But we see that God has chosen him as king. God revealed himself to him. God really affirmed him as king. So God said, you are chosen by me. I'm with you. The previous chapter, we see that Solomon is chosen by God. Among all the sons of David, God has chosen Solomon. To God, Solomon is a legal king, has deity. This is how God told him and revealed to him personally and promised to be with him. Today we come to chapter 4. Now we have this God given king ruling. What will be his influential power like? What is the influence? So the title today is like with a God given king ruling. Then we have joy, peace, and wisdom in the world. That is to say, this king will exert his influential power all over the land. Verse 1 to 20, it tells us how King Solomon ruled over Israel in his territories. So King Solomon ruled over all Israel. When we look at verse 20, the people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. Solomon reigned as king. It's God who has given this king to Israel. Now, coming to verse 20, then we see that the people of Judah and Israel were as numerous as the sand on the seashore. Even though we see a lot of weaknesses in King Solomon, but he's chosen by God. God affirmed him. God's power come upon him. When the Israelites have this king, their number is as numerous as the sand on the seashore. That is to say, they prosper. And also, they ate, they drank, and were happy. There are three participles here. They ate, they drank, and were happy. Describing them as numerous as the sand on the seashore. And everyone was eating, drinking, and having joy. They have food to eat, they have drinks, and everyone was so happy. Is to describe their condition with so many people, like as numerous as the sand on the seashore. The Israelites, that everyone is in such condition, in such state. It's not that there's too many people, they don't have enough food or drinks or not enough wine. But everyone can eat, drink, and they are happy. If a king can let all the people in the nation, they eat, they drink, and they are happy, then it's great. There is no beggar. When I was small, I felt that, Hong Kong is under poverty. Because when I was small, I'm in poverty. When I was small, I don't have new pairs of trousers. But it's my mother who sewed with the cloth for me to wear. My mother is full of wisdom. He saved money to buy a sewing machine. So all my clothing is made by my mother. So I wear what my mother sewed me. I have a little story A. At that time, Connaught Building was the tallest building in Hong Kong with 50 stories. That's the tallest building, high class. I lived in Kwun Tong, Then I went with a few small friends wearing these short trousers and also the running shoes. So I wear those shoes in PE lesson. Then we went by the ferry from Kuntong to North Pond, and from there we took the tram to Central. So we just want to go up to Connaught building. We have to visit Connaught building, and our heart is jumping, leaping. We are afraid that people might cast us out. So we went to the lift, go up to the top floor. But we cannot go out. And then we go one floor down. Then we can go out. And we look around. And immediately we jump back to the lift. And then went out again. Oh, I've been to Connaught building. At that time, I felt, oh, I'm really poor. I was having low self-esteem. We thought, oh, in Europe, in America, there's no poor people, and everyone was great. But when I grew up, I went to foreign countries, and I realized that every country, there are poor men. I've been living in Canada for so many years. I have seen a lot of beggars. I went to Europe. I saw many beggars. But the beggars are of higher class. they can tender like a dog. Now, if they bring back, if they are willing to tend a dog, the government will give them subsidies. So by tending a dog, it seems that they are receiving this social aids from the government, social welfare. So they will have income, a little income every month. And they beg on the street with this dog. When people see that, oh, you are so pity, then they will give you more money. And I have to salute to the dogs who help the poor men. That I know in this world there are poor men. Nowadays, many people migrate to foreign countries. And they know that, oh, the moon in foreign countries is not greater than in Hong Kong. So this is my ignorance when I was small. So, like the Chinese people in the Cheung dynasty, we when we face the foreigners, we become low self-esteem. But if the king can let the people of the nation eat, drink, and be happy, they will be great. But I don't think any nation can do this. Perhaps, maybe in the Middle East, because they produce oil, then they may be able to do this. Then the king can continue to give them money. How could Solomon do this? Of course, it's from God, but he must work hard. Starting from verse 2 until 19, is talking about his governors, his sovereignty. He has 9 officials, the head of officials. So 9 positions with 11 department heads. These 9 positions they have, like the high priest, the secretaries, the recorder, commander-in-chief, priest, district governors, and then a priest and advisor to the king, palace administrator, and those in charge of forced labor. There are 9 positions, 9 different types. We might be confused. In verse 2, like in verse 2, and these were his chief officials: Azariah, son of Zadok the priest. And verse 4, the second part of verse 4, Zadok and Abiathar, priests. So the translation is not the same as the original text. The original text is verse 2. Verse 2, the son of Zadok. The original text is there is the word the priest. So the priest here can be translated as the chief priest. And then second part of verse 4, Zadok and Abiathar, the priest. There is no the priest. But in NIV version, it's translated as chief priest, but it's not so sure. But the original text here in the second part of verse 4, there is no like high priest. Zadok and Abiathar, when King Solomon reigned, then they were very old. They were the high priest in the times of King David. But when it comes to King Solomon, something happened. Abiathar were dethroned. Like Abiathar don't have the position anymore. King Solomon said, I'm not going to kill you, Abiathar, because you have carried the ark of God. So you go back to your own village. But here, the name of Abiathar appeared again. I believe that after he didn't have the post anymore, after he's deposed, then King Solomon revived his position, but it's not being the high priest anymore. Even Zadok is not a high priest. King Solomon has given the position of the high priest to his son. So among all the officials, he's number 1. He is the high priest. I talk about Azariah, who is the high priest. Then Zadok and Abiathar, they were the priests only, or they become the helper of the high priest. This is how the previous generation passed on to the next generation. This is the wisdom of King Solomon. Because Abiathar, he is important. His father was killed because of David. So in the city of the priests, many people were killed because of David. They want to save the life of David. Because the high priest at that time has given bread to David while he's running for his life. And the high priest at that time has given the sword of the giant Goliath to David. So this is the sword put alongside the ephod. I believe that it is God who has given the power and strength to David via the sword at that time with the anointing of God. So in the Kung Fu film, we say this is the sword of God. So Abiathar is important. Could be that Solomon thought about it. He has a broad heart. Okay, I use you again. But you will not be the high priest. pass it on to the next generation. So these two old men supported, helped the next generation. So this is about a broad heart and with and a wise mind. So this is how this government is being set up by King Solomon. And they have this provincial governor, the district governors, in charge of the needs of the palace and to administer all these places. And then verse 19. So these officials are important because two of them, they married Solomon's daughters. When King Solomon set up his system this way, and then when it comes to verse 20, the Israelites were as numerous as the sand on the seashore, and everyone ate, drank, and were happy. That's why I say, with a God-given king ruling, then there will be joy and prosperity. So we are going to have the election of the Hong Kong governor. That we must pray. The chief executive. It's not the man choosing our chief executive or the governor. It is God, which is much more important. This person must know God, must be able to communicate with God. There's no blockage. God will bless him or her because this person is chosen by God. Then this person will be able to set up his team to minister. God will lead this person and will give wisdom. We must pray for this person. If you are listening to me via online morning devotion, then I invite you to pray for your own nation. So a king of love is very important, being chosen by God. And let's see from verse 21 to 28. This is the second paragraph. Then all nations with a God-given king ruling, then they have all the peace. They will live in safety. So the first paragraph is, then with this second paragraph is, with all the nations with a God-given king ruling, then they will live in safety. Verse 24. For he ruled over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River, from Tiphsah to Gaza, and had peace on all sides. During Solomon's lifetime, Judah and Israel, from Dan to Beersheba, lived in safety. And all these nations paid tributes to him. That is to say, Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms, all the nations. These words are important. Solomon ruled over all the kingdoms. I don't think Solomon sent his army to defeat or to take over all these countries. No, it's not just like the China histories. But a king of love, being chosen by God, is not like that. It's not that he has the armed forces to oppress other nations or to devour the people. But all these nations, come to pay tribute. So this king is not to depend on his power, his army to defeat other nations. But verse 21, it says that Solomon ruled, and then these countries brought tribute to Solomon. The original text is to be his being. Solomon's being is to rule. We're still on verse 24. That is to say, Solomon has this life, has his capacity given by God. His being is to rule over all the nations. So he interact with the nations. From the Euphrates River, all over the Philistine land, when he interact with these nations, we could see that. So while Solomon, in all his life, these people pay tribute to him. That is second part of verse 21. So people submit to him. It's not by his armed forces. So these nations come to pay tribute to him throughout his life. And we can see that when they did this, they blessed Solomon. Apart from what King Solomon needed, like the food and all the supplies, it's a lot. So every day what Solomon need to eat is a lot. I believe that Solomon must be so fat because he has eaten a lot of food. Not only people paying tribute internally, but also tribute from foreign countries. So you can see it's a lot of food, a lot of sheep. So a lot of cows, like 100 sheep, gazelle. So it's every day. Like all these pasture-fed cattle, store-fed cattle, verse 23, 22. A lot of food. So it's people from all nations coming in and going out. They come to King Solomon. So this is like inborn, is God-given being. Is he can govern the people so well. The people from all nations brought the tribute to him. And they have such a good fellowship with all of them. You know, eating, like having meals with people are important. Everyone eat, drink, and happy. And they have more people. And when they have a good body, they can give birth to many sons and daughters. And many people brought tribute to him. Everyone was happy. They're not being forced. They are being called. They are touched, inspired to do this. And when everyone they eat together, they have good fellowship. And they have good relationship among the nations. That's why we can see verse 24. Why verse 22 and 23, we see what are the food eaten by Solomon. And we can see how important it is to eat with people in order to have fellowship with others. And then verse 24, it says, "For he ruled over all the kingdoms west of the Euphrates River, from Tiphsah to Gaza, and had peace on all sides." So it's never easy to be Solomon. He has to eat a lot of food and have to accompany so many people. This is the same for our discipleship. You must have fellowship with your cell member and disciples, eat with them. Oh, of course, you must not be like Solomon and you must pay tribute to me. No, this is wrong. So everyone on their own free will. And you feel that some of them they have difficulties like paying the bills or buying the food. So do not accompany them to eat in luxury places. So if someone is not having a good income and he or she invited you to luxury places to eat, do not do that. Do you know? If your income or your position is not, you always go in and out of the hotel, so you better accompany them to just the ordinary restaurant or cafe. So even the places you choose, you must take note of this. It's better to eat at home. Whatever you have, just share it with them. You know, eating is not most important, but fellowship is important, especially when the cell leader has to prune the disciples. So before you do that, you must invite them to eat. So, like in the past, before I prune Pastor Dino, I will invite him to eat crab together. So, after a while, then I will prune him. Then the relationship is still there. And he changed. Do you understand? And you can see the wisdom of God. So for like first 22 to 23 is talked about what Solomon have eaten. So it is in between his relationship with all the nations. So I want to share with you what my godmother, Mother Xu, said to me. She taught me how to have fellowship with people. She said it's important to eat. So you need to meet with them from time to time. But if you see someone, he's willing to talk to you, to meet with you, when you meet up, after that, then you have this relationship with them. As compared with those you didn't meet, then this person will have better relationship with you. So for those businessmen, so you must grab hold of the opportunity to meet up with people. After you met up with them, then there is higher opportunity to make the business. So when you meet with them, you have better relationship. And when you eat with them, and after that, you have even better relationship with them. If from time to time you have meals with them, then the relationship will further be developed. So if you always eat with them, then you can get what you want. Do you understand? So this is how the world follow. But there is some truth in it. When we look at the scriptures about Solomon, like how God has given us the being, if God has not given King Solomon being, you know, it's a lot of hard work to eat with so many people. Yeah, you have to remember so many things. It's never easy. We must have the gift from God. We can also see that when they have peace on all sides and when there is peace in the world. Now, verse 25. During Solomon's lifetime, Judah and Israel from Dan to Beersheba, lived in safety, everyone under their own vine and under their own fig tree. So peace on all sides. The nations have peace. And like all the people, they have good relationship with the king and Israel. And also all over Israel, they lived in safety. That they influence each other. Even the people of Judah and the Israelites, they can live in safety under their own vine and under their own fig tree. Oh, they are so happy under the vine, under the fig tree. They have joy and they can eat and drink and have fellowship. Everyone can do this. Why? Because they have peace on all sides. No one come to plunder them. What they have grown, they can enjoy themselves and they can bless others. Because everyone had peace. This is very important. When they have peace, does it mean that they don't need the armed forces? They still need it. So verse 27 says, verse 26, they also have chariots and horses and all kinds of transportation, so that no one lacks anything who come to the king's table. So that all kinds of supplies are there. This is the second paragraph. All nations, they have the God-given king ruling. Then they have peace on all sides. And this peace becomes the peace of Israel. Because they reconcile with each other. Verse 29 to 34 is the third paragraph. It further explains. It explained again why we have this God-given king ruling. We have peace, happiness. Why King Solomon can accompany so many people, have fellowship, have meals with them. And when we look at this chapter, it seems like we always see King Solomon eating. He highly regards eating. And even we can see the food menu here. And even we can see here the people lack nothing who come to the king's table. And verse 28, and they have this team for transportation because they have all these horses, chariots. Everyone is happy and peaceful. Why? The last paragraph tells us the reason. The king chosen by God take the hearts of all the people. Put it again. With this God-given king ruling, then this world has wisdom. Because the king takes their heart. These people, they all come to King Solomon and listen to his words. Everyone, they desire for his wisdom. Verse 29, God gave Solomon wisdom and very great insight and a breadth of understanding as measureless as the sand on the seashore. Verse 29 and 20, they are parallel. Verse 20 belongs to the first paragraph. So why the Israelites, they can eat, drink, and be happy, and as numerous as the sand on the seashore? It is because God has given great wisdom to Solomon. He has a broad heart, full of wisdom, just like sand on the seashore. So it's as numerous that is even better than all the kings. His wisdom and his heart is broad. That's why in Israel there are so many people, they prosper and very happy. Then we come to verse 34. From all nations, people came to listen to Solomon's wisdom, sent by all the kings of the world who had heard of his wisdom. The meaning in NIV version is an interpretation. The original text means that is so many people, all the people, they came to Solomon, listened to him. And all the kings. So we have all the people first and then all the kings. All kings, they send gifts to Solomon, or they came to King Solomon. It means all the people from all over the world, they came to King Solomon. Hear him speaking. All the kings brought with them gifts. Coming to Solomon, listen to his wisdom. That's why I say, in this world there is a God-given king ruling. There is wisdom. In this world, like everyone is willing to listen. I'm telling you, the problems in the world now is a family problem. It's the division between the two generations. It's because the parents, they do not follow the core value. God first, then the earth, then people and the earth. They put their job first. And because of their upbringing, they have a lot of hurts and they pass it on to the next generation. That's why the next generation couldn't have good fellowship with them. The reason is the previous generation didn't listen to the next generation and vice versa. When they grow up and they work in this marketplace, they don't listen as well. Think about what Solomon asking God for wisdom, as in yesterday's passage. So what kind of wisdom do we ask for? So wisdom can be interpreted as wise, hearing, willing to listen. Hearing plus understanding. Willing to submit. After I heard and understand, I do it. This is wisdom. Listening is very important. So Solomon's been having meals with so many people. He listened to them, understand them, and lead them. This is what cell leaders need to do. And even the head of nations need to do. So if the head of nations are willing to listen to your people, it's not that after you hurt them, you're afraid of them, and then just let go. It is the people following the head of nations. It's not the other way around. So this is the problem with our politics. The people like anonymous, and after they have done something, they think they can do anything they like. No, it's the head of nation need to lead them, and also need to understand them. That's why in our couples camp we teach them ABC communication. This is important. I hope that the government and her officials will lead his team to learn ABC communication from us. Then you and your subordinates need to communicate, need to listen to them. As authority, we need wisdom from God. Your subordinates the followers need to listen. But in this world, the problem is not everyone is willing to listen. Even the Sino-American relationship, the problem is the same. So everyone just do as they saw fit. May God help us. In this world, we must have the God-chosen people standing there. So in this world, God has chosen you. So in your circle of friends, you can be like Solomon. You bring great influential power in the world. Let's praise our God